Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lunch Therapy, where the world truly is an illusion. Hello and welcome to Lunch Therapy number 59. So good to be here. So good to see you. This is the last day of Better Off Dead week. I'm going to miss it. We have an incredible guest today, Diane Franklin, pictured here with John Cusack. She's the character of Monique, the foreign exchange student in Better Off Dead. And so glad to have her here. It's just going to be really fun. But first, we got to take in some breaths. 3 breaths. Feel your feet on the floor. Let's get present. Hold it. Let it out. Taking another breath. Let it out. Holy Todd Lee. Holy. Taking another deep breath. Think about our guest that's coming on soon. It's going to be enlightening. Some more stuff about Better Off Dead. Let it go. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And let's get into the interview because I think it's really fascinating. Here we go. Diane Franklin, Monique from Better Off Dead. All right, here we are. We are lucky enough to be with Diane Franklin, who plays Monique in Better Off Dead, and she's in many other films as well. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is the one that comes to mind right now. But we're so lucky to have you here. Thanks for joining us here on Lunch Therapy.
Merci buckets for asking me.
Merci buckets. So there's so many great quotes from this film. That's one of the things that I like about it. People quote this thing and they don't even know they're quoting it. People say, "I want my $2." You know, people say, "I'm sorry, sorry your mom blew up, Ricky," and stuff like that. They just don't, or "Get your testicles off of me," and like, what is that from? I don't know what it's from. So did you know when you guys were making this film? Did you think this was going to be a big film? Did you think it was going to be a lasting film? What were you thinking when you were making this thing?
I didn't think that anything was going to be. I never thought that it was going to be quoted.
Yeah.
And we didn't. I mean, I can tell you this: every person who was in this film thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Because they would not have done it if they did not think the script was so funny. And I remember thinking, how is this being made? There's nothing gratuitous in it.
Yeah.
How is this possible that there's a film that I would actually go and see that I'm actually in? At
the time, were films more gratuitous, do you think? I mean, I think probably sex scenes were probably more extensive back then in the 80s, right?
Oh, well, the idea is that how do you get an audience member to go to a theater? You have to either get them up out of the bed, into a car, driving, get to the theater, pay money to go into a theater to watch things. And it was basically bad language, violence, and, sexual
sex.
Sexual
sex.
So,
the best kind. Yeah. And it seemed like that was something that people did a lot more. I mean, it seemed to me the sex scenes were like a lot longer, and like now they're kind of uncomfortable to watch because they play music and it just like where people normally would cut, right?
I got to say, I think the sex scenes are very educational, and frankly I think that's where a lot of America learned about sex.
Yeah.
Through the teen films. So I think that's kind of interesting when you think about it. I mean, you certainly couldn't have it at home with younger students, younger kids. So I
Yeah.
think there's a place for it.
Hmm.
But in terms of Better Off Dead, I just was so thrilled, and I don't think anybody who was in the film, we didn't anticipate it was going to be
Yeah.
not remembered. We loved the film, but
Yeah.
we just didn't think that. I really didn't think people were going to be watching it today and remember it, because it was a very kind of word of mouth film. It really is, and I think it is still today. In fact, I'm actually writing a book about Better Off Dead right now
Really?
because, and it
Okay.
is going to be the ultimate of all books because it comes from love.
Yeah.
And I love the film. I love the characters. I think it's a great American film, and I think it's a great romance, and it teaches a lot of wisdom, and it's funny, and you can play it every Christmas. And there's a lot of great things about it. So when you said the quotes, I have to say one of the things that I find awesome was there was a lot of quotes that I thought were memorable,
Yeah.
but then there were quotes that I didn't even realize people knew. And people would say to me, well, like whenever this happens, I'll say this quote. And whenever
Yeah.
that happens, I'll say that quote. And I found it, it's just really exciting to be in a film that has memorable quotes.
Yeah, certainly the French fries, French dressing to drink Peru. I mean, that's something that people say all the time, and you almost can't help but say that stuff, because it's so ridiculous
Yes.
and fun.
Or Christmas.
Christmas or the language of love.
Wow, right.
Yeah, it's so great.
Which, honestly, I have to say, Laura Waterbury,
Yeah.
my tongue twister, Laura Waterbury. Well, can't say
That
it
is
10
hard to
times.
say.
Um,
Yeah.
But she played my mom, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, she actually passed a few years ago. I really wanted really wanted to interview her for my book, and unfortunately, she had passed. But she was a dream to work with. We
Really?
laughed so hard, and I just was so lucky to work with her. She was just hilarious.
She's so
a
funny
great
in that
time.
movie. There's so many good characters in the movie, and the actors so commit to them. That's what I appreciate about it. She really committed to that in a kind of like she was playing a tragedy or something.
She created something that did not exist until she created it.
Yeah.
And by the way, you talked about Cal Arts, that you had gone to Cal Arts, right?
Yes.
So did Savage Steve Holland. And
Yes.
so all of this came out of the beauty of, I think, to me, what made this film so special was that Savage came from an animation background. So he saw everything sort of as bigger than life and cartoony. But I honestly think sometimes life is so crazy that you shift over to the other side where, it can make you crazy. And then you go, you know what? This is hilarious. I mean, we're not on the other side of it. And so I think with Better Off Dead, the idea that it was like killing yourself, the idea of suicide obviously is a traumatic and like serious issue. But for him to take it and shift it to the other side and make it such a lively, bright, kind of life-affirming film was hilarious. I mean, just wonderful. I think it gives people a place to go when they feel so down,
And it's everything was sort of exaggerated, but things that you might be feeling anyway. Like when he's drawing in a sketchbook and then it becomes animated, and there's the girl that's dating the entire basketball team or whatever. These are sort of exaggerated, and he's trying to ask her out, sort of exaggerated things of what actually happens to you.
Feels,
Yeah, it's how it feels.
You feel like when you're a teen that everyone is asking her out. You feel like your girlfriend, everybody is asking your ex-girlfriend out. You feel like when
the
you listen to
teacher
radio,
asks her out.
the radio where every song is a love song. You feel that, and I think maybe that's what the button is that, we all understand the feeling, and then it goes,
and then it just does it. It takes it a little bit farther, which is what comedy does sometimes. It's like, and that's the thing in rewatching it, which I only can see this blurry version that they have on YouTube at this point because I can't find it anywhere online. But I think
really,
I think it will probably be back online. It was probably like licensed by somebody and now it's not or something. It's kind of in limbo. But that's one thing that I noticed about it because I watched it with my wife and she had not seen it before. But it's
that's
like
a cool turn on, isn't it?
Yeah, it's fun.
You're a virgin. You haven't seen it. Now you're going to see the film.
Yeah, and it's fun too because it's like one thing after another. You're like, oh, I remember this part, and it doesn't really have a lot of dead spots in it. I feel like.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it moves along. I think it's still I think it still works today. I have done, conventions, and I have parents bringing their kids, and the kids love it.
They do.
And that's a really cool thing. And I think it's got like great role models in it, and the caricatures they're just memorable, but again, it's memorable not because we ever thought it was. I think it just hits home. And I have to tell you, like, when I go to conventions, it is such a beloved film. So if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And remember, I took l'existe in French.
Yes.
So if you don't
Right.
know me,
If you don't know who you are.
go with the French voice.
Did you, now you're a real actor, right? So did you work hard on your French accent for this thing?
Oh yeah. Like, well, what happened was interesting. I had done a film before, in New Zealand, actually, and I played a French girl in there, but that was more like a dramatic, like I had to play it very real. So it was my first time of doing a French accent. So when I came back from that film and I got the audition for Better Off Dead, I thought, well, there's a French girl in it. They must want me to play this character. And when I came in, they said, but I loved the French girl. And I thought, well, I can do this.
Yeah.
Because I worked on it. But when you when you act, what you do is like you go in and you connect with your instinct and your gut and like what connects with you. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, then you, like, once you get a part, then you do the research. What, like, for instance, any French that I spoke in the film, I put in, like, I researched and like I decided what I would say if I was upset, because if you're from another country and you get upset, usually you would go to speak your native language, right?
Yes.
So there were things that I could add, and that's what I did the research afterwards, making sure that it was French. And also, I made tout existe, and this is a general French. It's not from a region,
Mm-hmm.
It's not specifically from a place, but it also has to be articulate enough for the audience to understand it. So there's sort of you have to take in the fact that people have to understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if it's very thick, you wouldn't be able to necessarily understand it, or perhaps it's too, it's just interesting. But what I love about it was that there was just an ease with everyone. Everyone sort of felt like I was French when we were acting. They didn't, it wasn't awkward.
Yeah.
I could improvise with them in French. So that was a really fun thing to do.
Super fun. Did you speak with a French accent offset?
No, this I did not. But sometimes, I could go into it if I needed to. When I had enough, I don't know, I just had enough confidence, I think, to go in and out of it. But I was very sincere.
Yeah.
I
like that about the movie, that it's sincere that way. It's not winking at you a lot. It's like, seems to be sincere.
No.
Yeah.
No, and in fact, that's what made it hilarious, because, like, for instance, Ricky, oh my gosh, Dan Schneider,
so
crying, laughing. He was
it.
so sincere. John was so sincere. John was lovely. I mean, he's just a darling. I love him. And he was just really real. And Curtis, oh my gosh, like, everybody was their own. I feel what also makes the film really fun is that it's not characters we've really seen before. I mean, we've seen the nerd, but we haven't seen a Ricky. Do you know what I mean? And we've seen maybe a kind of the druggy guy, but we haven't seen a Curtis. And, we've seen French exchange student, but we haven't seen a Monique. So it's kind of, it's different,
I have to.
Even Beth.
Beth,
Amanda. She's not the typical girl that you would think. And I remember Savage, one of the things that's interesting about his casting was, and part of my book, the things I'm writing is, he's saying, he was looking for someone who was likable, not really unlikable, because Lane wouldn't go for someone who was not likable. So
no, and she kind of explains to him, I gotta date somebody more popular. I mean, it's just sort of pragmatic. That's what I do. I mean, that's my job. Yeah, you're like, oh, okay. Now, I got to ask you specifically about this one scene because it's something that keeps coming up. There's a scene in the dance where Ricky takes off his jacket and then throws himself on the floor face down. What was that? We used to do a thing, it was called face dancing, and we did that at dances where we laid face down on the floor, and it was kind of a thing.
Really?
Yeah, and so when we see that, we're like, how are they doing that? What's going on? What happened?
That is so funny. All right, so one of the things that's interesting with the film was that Savage, he was a very young director, and he allowed us to do some improvising. I think it was just, he was like, just go for it. And I think people who have experience in comedy, they very much allow other people to just bring what they find is funny to it, and then they can direct from there, you know. If it's too big, they can bring it down, but there's a freedom that Savage gave us as actors, which was the best, and it made us enjoy working. Okay, because that is a very important part of directing, is that your actors are happy and that they get to express their ideas, because once they do, then you can bring it back and forth. But if an actor's too timid to do it, then it doesn't it's too stiff, right?
Yeah, totally.
And a lot of actors are not even comfortable in improv. So that's what was very interesting in this particular film, is that there were actors. I mean, Vincent Schiavelli, who played math teacher, that's like, he's a seasoned actor. I mean, he was in Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah. But if you allow the actor to play, then they show their imagination and you can see cool things. Well, anyway, that scene, we were just supposed to dance. And the one thing first was, I told Danny, I said, pick me up and swirl me around. Like, go ahead, just let's do this. And I just pretended to be a rag doll. So that was really fun. Like, that wasn't written in the script. So, you know, that was really cool. And then I was just like, okay, throw me away like a rag doll. And I think, I mean, it wasn't written that he did that. He just did that.
He did.
You know, they just went, okay, go, Danny, do your thing. So he's going to actually, I think, contribute to the book as well. I'm going to find out what the details on that are.
Please.
But I think that was just him. And I didn't even know that was a thing.
Well, for us, it was a thing.
It was?
But we lay down face down with our hands to our sides, and it became a thing. I mean, there was also a thing on Facebook called planking. And, you know. But the way he felt was kind of splayed out. But he did just lay there. He didn't like just get up. And I wonder if maybe he was like trying to slide across the floor and then didn't. And then, you know, and then they just cut, which I like that kind of stuff too.
I think the idea was that he put all his self out there as his character, you know, like Ricky is doing his thing. And then he was like, I'm done. And that was it. So I think it came from who he was as a character.
That was cool about the character too, I must say, because the character was multidimensional, because he wasn't just a dork that wouldn't, you know, try and be cool or try and do something or take some chances. He was actually out there, you know, trying to be cool. He was trying to have fun.
He was stubborn.
Yeah.
He was so stubborn as a character. He was like, he also, what I loved about his character was he was somebody who, he had a lot of ego.
Yeah, he had a lot of ego.
He had a lot of ego.
You have to listen to Mother, you know?
Right, and he defied Lane because he had that ego. And I think it's almost like the guy who thinks he's all that, but he's like, well, one day you'll see who I am. I mean, if Ricky grew up and, you know, he wound up being in another film, that would have been the character that was like the Revenge of Ricky. Do you know what I'm saying?
Revenge of Ricky.
But I definitely think that character, I mean, all the characters, gosh, just even the tiny characters. I mean, even the guy who's like in the two guys in the tree, you know, and they say that line about
classic,
perfectly nice. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's such a quotable line. People have said that to me so many times.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it has such legs. So you're in a family of people that are creative. Is that right? You and your husband and your daughter are all creative. And what is that like? And your son too. What is that like?
Okay, so it stems from the mom, and I am a very creative person, and I give my family and people around me a lot of creative freedom. And I understand. I think it's just I was raised that way, and I was raised to be, you know, just. I think what makes creativity is when you're given little, not too much, but you have to do something with it. And so when you are given, like if I said to you, you know, that's one of the things I really love about being an actor is go in a room. They don't need costume. They don't need makeup, hair, but they can entertain you. Mm-hmm. They can make you laugh, cry, and it's all just, everything's in your hands. So I really like that thought. It's just like an artist, you know, you pen, paper, then you create beautiful art, you know, that's all you need, pencil, paper, whatever. So this is how it started. Yeah. And what happened was then when I met my husband, he's a writer. And so to me, that attracted me because I love his imagination.
Yeah.
And to me, he's like a visionary. I mean, I don't know if anybody knows, but
that interview that I saw with him was just like, wow, this guy's like a font of creativity. And he was talking about his creative process. And you're like, and that was one of the things that he said that he really enjoyed was the freedom that he had. Like he was working on the Fairly Odd Parents, I think.
Yeah.
And he said it was like a bucket that you could throw jokes into because it had such strong structure to it. And you knew what the show was going to be about, that you could just throw stuff in there. And he said that they would just have so much fun every day. And that kind of creative freedom is something that a lot of us, you know, besides fame and fortune, that's not really the goal. The goal is to have creative freedom and be able to creatively do what you want to do and do things that you're proud of. Or that you know, help other people, and other people are like, thank you for doing that, you know?
By the way, if you want to interview him, I'll ask him. He's
I would love
awesome.
to. I would love to.
Okay, cool. Yeah. He is such a, first of all, he's very upbeat, fun guy.
Yeah.
And very, very smart. And he's really a sense of structure. He knows how to write. He's been writing forever. I mean, he's been Emmy nominated, and he's been in the business forever. He used to write for Staying Elsewhere long time ago.
Yeah, he had that story that I heard in the interview about how.
So anyway, so he does his writing, and then what happened because of our relationship is we have a lot of comedy and laughing at our house.
Yeah.
And when we had kids, that to me was like I was like, I want to raise our kids with a sense of humor, and they were raised with that. They were raised with understanding. You know, people look for riches and they look for fame and money, but the real gift is being able to laugh.
Yeah.
And you laugh at life and at yourselves, and you know what I mean?
You got to be having a good time. You have to be. I have to remind myself that all the time because I get so worked up about, like, you know, whether something's going to be perfect or not, or, you know, and I have to just kind of let go and go, are you having fun? Are you having fun? Because nobody's going to have, you're not
That's what I mean
doing your job if you're not having fun.
Yeah. In fact, like, I mean, look, if you're with your spouse or your girlfriend or something, you're laughing, you got it. You're rich. You get it? Like, that's it. You know, you've got, you know, there's no higher place. You know, but anyway, so because of that, our kids were raised with a sense of humor, and basically, what that did is that made them not take themselves so seriously. Mm-hmm. Like, they work hard. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. They work hard, but they don't take themselves seriously. Yeah. So but if you do that, what happens is the process of creativity is you allow yourself to make mistakes along the way, because that's how you learn, and that's how you wind up doing something amazing, because you have to keep trying. And if you get all self-serious, you shut down and you won't be able to create. Does that make sense?
Totally.
So we've been you've got to, like,
I know so many people in this industry, and I've been, you know, around for a long time, and I know so many people that don't do anything because they think it's not perfect. So they just are stuck, and they're extremely talented, some of the most talented people I know, but they just won't step out there because it's like, oh, it's not perfect, or it's not as good as something that they have in their mind. And they don't realize you have to just put one foot in front of the other.
Visualizing is very, very important part of that. But perfection is something that we strive for, but it's not an end. Mm-hmm. So, for instance, I've done projects where I'm like, okay, do it. And then I'll reach a plateau and I'll go, you know what? This can't get better than it is where it is for what it is. You reach a level, and but it is about hard work. It's a very interesting thing.
I mean, it's a balance.
My husband and I have philosophies about it. I teach kids too. Like, I'm very much about the creative process. So
when you say creative freedom, you said, I allow my family creative freedom, or I want them to have creative freedom. What exactly do you mean by creative freedom?
And I'm glad you brought that up, because creative freedom, a lot of people, I didn't realize it because I was raised with it, is a lot of people are very judgmental of their spouses and their children to be creative. Yeah. They might judge it or say something like, they might coin it with a phrase like silly, or it's, you know, it says has no purpose, or it's just, you know, wasting your time. Mm-hmm. Never wasting your time. Being creative is not wasting your time. It's actually finding answers. Mm-hmm. It's the brain of the person who is searching for the answer that they haven't found out yet. And it is such an important part of development, and we let it go early. We think, oh, it's childish. Imagine, I mean, look at the people who are trying to find the cure for the coronavirus right now. We're asking them to go to that childlike stage and go, think out of the box. And I have to I'm going to get back to the creative process.
No,
that
go
thing.
ahead.
One of the things in this art, my family that I am, is I'm the person who makes miracles happen. Like bizarre things, like people think, oh, we can't fix that TV, or we can't, or that will never happen, or this, and I make it happen. And it is so weird because it comes from a place that is not controlling. It comes from a place of opening up your brain and thinking out of the box.
Yeah.
And if you speak to my husband, you'll have to ask him about it, because it is such a funny thing. Recently, something happened, and he said, that wasn't supposed to happen, but of course you made it happen, and we're just going to let that go. It's just like, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So it's because of thinking out of the box. So anyway, creative freedom.
I like it.
Like with my spouse, like I do crazy things. I do cuckoo things but my spouse doesn't judge me. He says, go, okay, fine, go for it. I'm just going to go do this, and that's fine. I'm not going to even, I'm not going to look. You just go do your thing, right? So I will go, creative things. Some things work out, some things don't. Like I made a board game years ago. It was like, that didn't go very forward, but then I wrote my book, and then that got published. So like, there's things that, some things will go forward, some things don't. And that's the nature of how things work.
I think your husband was channeling you when he said something like that too. He said, you put your energy into something, this might not be the thing, but you still put 100% into it, and something else might come out of it. You never know,
Absolutely. Now, here's the thing. As an actress, I have worked since I was 10 years old. Okay. I wanted to be an actress. I am stubborn. I wanted it to happen. Whether someone wanted me to be an actress or not, I wanted that. Okay. That's a little crazy, but it's how I was. It's like, I knew would make me happy.
No, most people don't know what they want.
I knew what I wanted. That's part.
That's like the big problem for a lot of people, is they're like, I don't know what I want. I don't have a passion for anything. Or they're like, I want that, but I can't have that because people are going to think I'm selfish or whatever.
Can I tell you something? That's the lie.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what they want.
Oh, you think?
One time somebody said to you, that's silly.
Yeah.
That's stupid. I'm
right.
telling you, I work with kids. Every one of the kids that I teach, and I teach thousands of kids, they know what they want.
Really?
But there's a parent or an adult who at one point says, you can't do that.
Can't have that.
Or they're not good at that.
You can have anything you want, but not that. Yeah.
And by the way, if you want some kid to do something, you just say to them, you'll never be a doctor. Don't you dare be a doctor. If you're a doctor, I'm going to be so mad at you. Okay, guess what they'll be. So,
that's good.
Never mind. So
reverse psychology.
But right. So but I will say that you do know what you want. You just are not allowing yourself to. So the voice of the outside person became the voice on the inside, and has said to you, you're not good at that. Now I'm going to teach you something amazing. You might be a person who is, let's say for instance, maybe I'm not good at math. I'm really not good at math. But if I wanted to be a mathematician, and there was somebody next to me who was a brilliant person at math, so if you had to pick between two people to be a mathematician, well, yeah, maybe they'll become a mathematician first. But guess what? Maybe they'll get so burnt out, they'll leave it. But me, I would be like the turtle, keep doing, and eventually I would become a mathematician because I worked so hard and it meant something to me.
You are so right.
So what I'm telling you, it's like the turtle in the hare, is that there's room for more than one mathematician.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So there's room for more than one writer, and there's room for more than one actress.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be the best unless you want to be.
Yeah.
And then you'll find a way. And maybe it'll take you longer. And guess what? Maybe the world isn't ready for you to be the greatest mathematician right now. But if you keep doing it, at one point it will be your turn.
I remember Prince said that when he first started playing the guitar, it was really hard for him. And I think really I always remember that when it's something, I'm doing something and I'm like trying to, and I'm like, wow, I must not have an aptitude towards this. No.
Right. Well, okay,
just keep doing it.
The interesting part. Just because you have an aptitude for something does not guarantee success. No. There are so many people, how many people, and this is probably very true, there's so many people who go, I want to be a model. I'm a model. And then some people really want to be models. And then other people are like, well, I'm just a model. Like people go, you're a model. Here's money. Go do this.
Yeah.
But they have no drive, no interest.
Right.
It's the person who wants to be. They're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And they're doing it today. You're like, whoa, okay.
I know. You're right. I mean, being a model is a totally different thing today than it was 10 years ago. And if somebody said, hey, I want to be a model 10 years ago, and they were not like that what models were then, which were like heroin chic or whatever, somebody might have stopped them.
Ready.
Yeah.
The world wasn't ready for them as models at that time period. So you say, okay, fine. Maybe at some point it'll happen.
That's what I say sometimes. Sometimes people say to me, you should have a podcast, because I'm a stand-up comedian. They say, you should have a podcast. And I'm like, yeah, I used to have a podcast. And I'm like the only guy without a podcast today, because I used to have a podcast. And but it was like, I always say I'm not, I don't miss the boat. I get there before the boat comes to the dock, and I jump in with all my luggage.
That's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own method that works for them. No one knows you better than you.
Yeah.
And the world will give you information and say, do this, but pick and choose. That works for me. That doesn't work for me. You know? And you were talking about my kids and the creative world I teach them. So one of the things I did for my kids is give them creative freedom to do whatever they like. I introduce them to things like I introduced gymnastics and soccer and baseball and dance, hip hop dancing and comedy, and I just introduce them everything. And then you see where they gravitate, what they like, music. So that's the best advice I give to parents like who have kids who want to be actors, and you kind of just introduce them, and then you watch, and then your job as a parent is to find out where they connect, and then your job is to help them, but don't do it for them.
Yeah.
So you put them in the environment and you give them a place. And if they don't want to do it, don't force them.
Yeah. And you can't sit there and go, that's wrong. Yeah. You can't be like, that's not how you do it. You have to just kind of give them a lot of space. This is everybody. This is not just kids. It's adults. It's everybody. We all have to watch our judgments, because we have a judgment on something, but I always say you can't judge a seed for not being a flower. You don't know what the flower is going to look like. You have no idea. But you have to give it water,
Yes. In fact, if there's things more likely is, if you let it make its own decision and whatever, it's more likely to grow. Certainly. I'll tell you what's interesting with my kids, because I was an actress, or am an actress.
Yeah.
I knew that my kids, especially when they hit middle school, kids usually go, I want to be an actor. I want to be famous. That's the time. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I was with my kids, I was like, okay, well, if they have an interest, or if there's something, I want them to see what that world is early, because I don't want them to, if they have an interest in it, I'm going to show them right then, because if I wait, they're going to put it on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Right. So when my kids were little and they said, oh, mommy's acting, whatever. And I'm like, well, are you interested? Do you want to try? Yeah, I'll try, and so I showed them what it's like. And for my daughter, she had actually a photographic memory, so she was very successful in it. But I also could see that she loved to write, and it was the time when we started having home computers.
Yeah.
So for her, I was like, acting was my dream. What's your dream? And for her, it was filmmaking and writing and comedy. And I said to her, you want to do so many things. Back in my day, we did one thing. I said, but you're doing something new. This is a time where all this thing is available to you. I said, go after it all and see, maybe you're going to create something that's never been created before.
Yeah, you don't know. She doesn't know.
If you do,
yeah,
you've got to have to be really nice to yourself, because you're creating something that hasn't been created yet, so the world's not used to it.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good thing to say. That's such a good point.
Right? Be patient with it. So when you're creating something that no one's ever seen before, you cannot expect the world to get it. It's like they need some kind of reference, and it might take a while. It's going to take longer than something that everybody knows. Everyone knows what a lawyer is. Everyone knows what a vet is. Everyone knows what a dramatic, screen actress it does.
Yeah.
But if you're creating now the multimedia thing, and you're doing YouTubing, all that is fresh. And now we're creating new visualization of what that is. new concepts, you know?
I know. We're sitting in it right now. The,
Exactly this.
Yeah, we're
It's
sitting in one
exactly
right
it.
now. I know when I started doing this show when we got locked down, and I'm on this is the 57th episode. Yeah, something like that.
Play ball.
But it's one of those things that I don't know where it's going. Like I started doing it and I was like, I'm doing stand-up comedy on the internet. And then I'm like, well, I don't have that many routines. So what am I doing? And so I kind of have learned to kind of let it go and just see how does this thing evolve.
You don't need to know where it's going because you don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know
have to
where
look
it's
at
going to go.
Yeah.
But are you doing what you love?
Yeah, and it's so much fun.
Are you meeting interesting people?
So much fun. Yeah.
See,
We would never be having this conversation if I wasn't doing this, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and it feeds on each other. Everything feeds on everything else. So it's super great. Yeah.
And you're bringing up another point too. We talk about creative freedom. It's not just kids. What about adults? What about the adults who are depressed now? And you know why they're depressed? Because they lost hope in their own creativity.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, just get off your back and start connecting to what you love to do. And you will start maybe you love to sing, dance. I don't care if you're good. Just start doing it.
I have mentors that are 20 years younger than I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I
do.
You know,
it's
you
exciting.
can't get all caught up in that whole age thing. All right, I'm going to have to end this now because we're going about enough time, but it's been super fascinating. And I really appreciate you coming on this show and talking with us. So
well, thank you. You talked about things
openly.
I haven't talked about before, so I think it's going to be interesting to the audience.
Yeah, I think so too. All right, so that is Diane Franklin from Better Off Dead. She's writing books. She's doing all kinds of incredible things, inspiring others, and we're just so happy to have her on the show. And thank you again, Diane.
Merci buckets again.
Merci buckets. Au revoir. All right. Well, that was something. That was really something unexpected and wonderful. And thank you, Diane, for being on the show. And thank you for the great lunch therapy community for, your comments. And, I'm kind of moved by that. I'm going to move on to something else here, which is just an example of what she was talking about. She has two kids, Olivia and Nick De Laurentiis, and her husband, Ray De Laurentiis, is this incredible animator and writer. We're going to get him on the show at some point. But this is Olivia. So Olivia does the thing. It's a show on Snapchat. It's called Apocalypse Goals. And this is what it looks like. I didn't even know they had shows on Snapchat, but this is where it is. And so check that out if you got your Snapchat going. I'm going to show you a trailer because, Todd, do what you love. Pick up that guitar or whatever it is. And let's do this thing, right? Let's live this life. Nick De Laurentiis is also... he's a musician. This is her son. He's doing his thing. Check him out on Spotify. And now for the trailer from Apocalypse Goals, Olivia De Laurentiis' show on Snapchat.
Aliens are vaporizing everything in California, and we are in California. Oh my God, what do we do?
If you're in California, get out now.
So the apartment is vaporized, the city is gone, we have to evacuate. What do we have packed from the bachelorette party?
Anything that I bought when I was drunk.
Crap. Can you call an airline to get us out of the country?
Yeah, do you have any preference of airline?
Oh, I don't know. Any airline that will get us out of the country because it's the apocalypse?
Well, I mean, do you have like Sky Points anywhere?
I will push you out of the car.
Oh, let's play a game called Who Do We Know That's Totally Gonna Get Vaporized?
Oh, who from the bachelorette party? Lynette. Lynette.
Oh my God, classic Lynette.
Classic Lynette. Honestly, Lynette.
Yeah, actually, I really hate Lynette.
Well, that of course looks hilarious. So let's check it out. Yeah. All right. So it's time now for dance break because we all need a dance break, right? I'm bringing the Colt Clark and the Clark family on again because I think they are fantastic. Oh, no. That's hilarious. Yeah, it looks hilarious. All right, so here we go. Here's the Colt Clark and the Clark family. I don't know them, but I think they're fantastic. I'm just going to show a little bit of it, and it's it's dance break.
Hey everybody, we're the Clark family. We're going to sing Get Back by the Beatles. Hit it, boys.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Go Clarks! Go Clarks! That's right. I love the Clarks. They're wonderful.